Very often, very often. I can give you once a week.
What specifically can you do to address that issue of migrants not being able to work?
We're going to do the duality of calling for, rightfully, the resources for the city. Even something simple as calling a state of emergency. If the president does that, it allows us to get resources.
Well, that was New York City Mayor Eric Adams defending his handling of the city's migrant crisis while calling for President Biden again to declare a state of emergency. A new Siena College poll finds 82% of New Yorkers say the migrant influx is a serious problem. Only 16% say it's not a serious problem. Get this, 58% say the state has done enough and should work to slow the flow of migrants. 36% want to accept more. Look at those numbers. Joining me now, New York Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. She's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and the House Republican Conference Assistant Whip. Congresswoman, your reaction?
Well, obviously, it's very frustrating because the mayor is not demanding, and our governor is not demanding, that the president secure our border. Instead, they're asking the federal government for more resources so they can open up more shelters. The mayor, from the very beginning, has misinterpreted New York City's right to shelter law, which was intended for homeless citizens. It was never intended for citizens of other countries who just crossed our border. And so by his interpretation, you know, there's been 7.5 million people. If they all came to New York City, where we have a population of 8.5 million, New York City taxpayers would be responsible for paying for their housing, legal services, Metro cards, and food, et cetera. All these things that citizens themselves don't get. So it's really ludicrous. And so two things. One, he should be demanding the president to secure the border. Let's stop this. Undo his executive orders today, and that would really resolve this problem. And number two, the mayor needs to stop misinterpreting this right to shelter and put an end to all this housing. This come to a point where he's looking at every single park, open space, empty buildings that are supposed to be right now transitioned into schools in my district are now being turned into shelters instead. And I'm in a community of Staten Island where we did not support this mayor's agenda. We did not support the governor or the president's agenda, and yet we're being subjected to their policies because we are part of New York City, and that is increasingly frustrating for this community.
Well, Congresswoman, let's talk about this because I want to hear about what's happening on Staten Island. How are you handling the illegal migrants? Because there was a huge rally, about 200 people, outside of this former Staten Island nursing home. That was over the weekend, and there's a possible conversion to an emergency shelter of this building. And then also Curtis Sliwa, you know him well, Guardian Angels founder, he organized that protest. He was arrested for blocking traffic. I mean, these are the scenes that we're seeing in your district. These are the scenes that we're seeing in this city. And don't get me started on the Roosevelt Hotel. It looks ridiculous right now down there in Midtown.
Yeah, so the protest the other day in front of the assisted living facility, this is a facility that housed senior citizens who worked hard, paid taxes their whole lives. They were living in this facility. They were removed from this facility and then turned around. A secret deal was entered with the city to turn it into a migrant shelter. That is so insulting for the families of these seniors who were forced to leave their homes. So this protest was taking place, and it was a peaceful protest. They walk into the street and all of a sudden arrested. And it's frustrating when you compare it to what happened in, you know, the summer of 2020, when all those charges against people who were looting and rioting and attacking police officers, setting police cars on fire, those charges were all dropped. And so I've called on our district attorney to then provide the same treatment and drop these charges against these individuals who were peacefully protesting. There's going to be another protest tonight in front of a school that was supposed to be that was a Catholic school that was closed, supposed to be opening up as a public school, and instead, without proper permitting or anything, the city's deciding to turn it into a shelter. And so that community is going to be coming out tonight on Staten Island. And we're going to continue to see this. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to be having to introduce legislation this week that would prohibit our national parks from being used because there's, as you know, Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, where 3,000 individuals will now be housed in an encampment. They want to do the same thing potentially in Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island. And so I'm going to be introducing legislation to put an end to that. But, you know, we could really use the help of Senator Schumer. I don't know where he is, but if he's watching right now, you know, we would really appreciate you pass something over in the Senate. In May, we passed the Border Security Act, And that would really put an end to this by stopping all the president's executive orders, going back to the policies of the previous administration, which said if asylum seekers can apply, but they need to do so from their home country or the next safe country, and stop the catch and release, and reinstate Title 42, add more funding for Customs and Border Patrol agents. If Senator Schumer doesn't like our bill, then he should introduce his own bill. Let's reconcile the differences, but do something over there in the Senate, because you see what's happening to your state of New York, and you're doing absolutely nothing.
Well, okay, where's Chuck Schumer? Where's Jerry Nadler? I mean, I have a lot of questions about that, but I do want to move on with you to another national issue that we're watching right now. So the chairman of the House Judiciary Oversight and Ways and Means Committees just sent this letter to the DOJ Inspector General asking him about potential roadblocks that would prevent him from investigating those whistleblowers that came before you, that came before the House, that alleged that cover-up in the Hunter Biden investigation. So the Republicans released a portion of a July letter they received from Horowitz. He told Congress about a potential jurisdictional issue that could hurt the investigation. Can you comment on this and help us understand what's going on here?
Look, the bottom line is that there's been interference at the highest levels of our government regarding an investigation into Hunter Biden. There's $2 million in unpaid taxes, $8 million of earnings. There are real serious concerns here that investigations were halted to allow for the expiration and statute of limitations to take effect. And that is something that we have been investigating. And I think that we've done a good job exposing what is going on here. And it is because of that IRS whistleblower testimony that was released by my committee, Ways and Means, that I believe that the judge rejected the sweetheart plea deal that Hunter Biden received. So we are moving forward with exposing the facts. There is a serious concern here about millions of dollars that were funneled from communist China, from Romania, from Ukraine to the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden family via these entities that were set up, whose sole purpose was to actually move this money. They had no other business dealings, these companies that were set up. And so it's very concerning that there's an entire influence peddling scheme here that was taking place while Joe Biden was vice president. And so we're getting to the bottom of it. We're exposing every day new revelations are coming out, and we're going to continue to push for accountability.
Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, always great to see you. Come back in person next time. It's always great to have a good conversation with you. You're a great way to start off our mornings. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Cheryl. Take care.
Good to see you. Okay, we've got a lot.